Hello everyone, I'm Adrian, I'm a home brewer. I claim to have the most advanced 1-gallon system in the world, so I'd like to back that up by showing you today just the parts of my gear, maybe a little bit of explanation for some choices, and then maybe on a later video possibly a brew day or parts of a brew day, because a little bit of this it's mostly obvious, but there's some subtleties. And then if you'd like to know why I made all these choices, I'd be happy to explain each one in excruciating detail. All of the possible ways to heat the mash, why I chose this one, the other ones I actually tried, etc. So let's start with the beginning, obviously, the mash tun. Realistically, there's a mill. I don't have it. I don't have a mill. So that would be number one. Actually, the hot liquor tun or something that heat the sparge water might be number two. We'll get to that. So we're gonna start with the mash tun. So yeah. So this right here, obviously, I could have had a 2-gallon stainless kettle and just kind of use that, but I decided to go with the obvious classic homebrew. This is like one of the first things I built, actually, was a 2-gallon insulated cooler. You lose the ability to directly heat your mash, more or less. I mean, there's workarounds, but you gain temperature stability, and the hope was that I wouldn't have to heat the wort at all during the mash. Unfortunately, you do have to do that, but there's workarounds. So this is basically your classic, just a big old mash tun. On this end, you just got a classic, just ball valve and a 1/2-inch barb. Inside, you've got another 1/2-inch barb. It could have been 3/8, doesn't really matter. And then this, which I soldered and kind of designed and built myself, which is let's see, yep, there you go. So there's like a little sparge manifold, mash tun manifold. So I've got little slits, maybe 1/3 of an inch apart on both sides. Doing a square proved quite kind of difficult on this scale, so I would have done that. It's about, it's basically, I took How to Brew's description of how big this should be, and I just kind of scaled it down 1 gallon. There's a slight angle on this inlet, which I liked at the time. I kind of think that the hole should be on the bottom. I'm torn on that. So basically, you slip this in here, and it tubing to that, tubing to the barb, and etc. So that's the mash. That's the mash tun, but there's more. So basically, to keep the mash, I was losing 5, maybe 10 degrees sometimes on a mash if I didn't preheat the tun. And also, even if you nail it, I mean, once you've mashed in, you can't change the temperature, and it was really all over the place. So I decided, okay, let's figure out a way to stabilize the temperature. So at first, I built a RIMS tube. It's like in the closet somewhere, but it's just huge and clumsy, and it seemed like a bad solution. So anyway, one option would have been just hot water additions, but I didn't love that, and it wasn't automated, so I don't like that. So I decided to do this. So first of all, I needed to pump for a few stages in this, and so I got one of these really kind of small, I think it was like a Steelhead or something like that, Steelhead 2.0 from I think More Beer. So over here, I kind of put this together. So this is, the pump itself that I'm holding is what you buy. And then I added a T and a 1/2-inch barb, so I got an inlet. This is the upstream side of the pump. And I've got a PTD sensor, PTD 100, if you care, sensor right here, right now guarded, 3-pin, if that makes a difference to you. Goes out to my brain, I'll show you in a second. And then I got just your obvious 3-piece, which is important for this because of the orientation, ball valve. And then you got another 1/2-inch barb, obviously. I don't love quick disconnects on this scale because they add a lot of mass, which I don't care about, but they're also just space and size, and it's I want this to be small, so I went with a lot of 1/2-inch barbs, just silicone tubing. It's not, I wouldn't call it, anyway, moving on. So yeah, this is something of the pride and joy. So basically, a HERMS coil. You may have noticed as I dragged it in the shot, it's a HERMS coil. Good eye. So I got this on Stainless Brewing, I think, or Brewers Hardware. I think it's Stainless Brewing. And so it's got these, I forget what they're called, but they clamp onto it's just a bare tube. It comes, you tell them how many inches you want above the coil, and the diameter of the coil is kind of preset. I think it's 3/8. And so you just get these things that lock on the end. Then I got that to 1/2-inch male flare. I thought that'd be the most useful thing. Gives me some choices. You could have just gone, they have a barb op. I mean, you can obviously put whatever you want at the end of this. This is an elbow. I have just recently added this because basically I treat this as the outlet. Did I do this right? I may have fucked this up. Anyway, I think yeah, I gotta swap this. But anyway, I was having problems with kinking the tubes, which is like a nightmare. And the thing with the tubes is like as they heat up, their physical properties change, so obviously they get more flexible, so they're more likely to like kink, like get kinks, which is a nightmare because you walk away, you're like, I'm good for an hour, you come back, boom, kink, and your temperatures have dropped. Not fun. So get the elbow. And then another recent addition, Blickman quick disconnects 1/2-inch barb, silicone tubing, the obvious choice. I did just have this on there on barbs, but because I was upgrading to the elbow anyway, because I had to do that, I was like, you know what, let me just buy this stuff. So doing all this was obviously not the cheapest way to do it, but if you want a ridiculously controlled brew house on 1 gallon or otherwise, you have to, it's expensive. So let's move on to the boil kettle. So this is maybe I'm the most proud of this by far of anything in the entire setup, because this was like, it's you know, it's like well-tread waters, but just stupid to do something this is just dumb. A 2-gallon kettle with this many bells and whistles, absolutely ridiculous. So before I hold this thing up, what do you want? You want you want it to be, obviously you want a kettle, you want it to be stainless steel. In a perfect world, you have a sight glass. You obviously have like a ball valve. Like there's no point in, of course you have a ball valve at the bottom. Maybe you have Whirlpool stuff. I don't care. I don't want to cut too many holes in this thing. It's small, and like circle, you know, the gaskets don't perfectly, because of the curvature, like because how tight the curvature is, like imagine like a soda can, like trying to put an O-ring on that thing, like good luck. So I just try to minimize that because I don't want to deal with leaks, as I'm sure they'll develop. So lid and the unit itself. This is oh yeah, all electric brewery, baby. I wanted to brew in an apartment, and I was like, well, let me just figure out how to do all this stuff. Took a long time, but it's doable. So I have, this is the, like, it's a little protector dongle thing. I forget where I got that, like electric brewing, maybe something like that. 14 gauge wire, pretty important. And then in here we got, I think it's like a 1650 element. And so let's go in here for a second. So first of all, it's one of the bent ones, which is really important because it's, well, relatively, how much really is a loose term here. Kind of important. It's lower watt density than just like a straight, powerful, like for a cartridge heater. That would be the obvious choice, but they're high wattage density, which means, you know, temperature shock, whatever. So that's that. Here we have just the outlet for the sight glass, and then finally we have a 3/8 barb elbow as my downstem, as my, like, you know. On this, it's the shortest one I could get, obviously ridiculously large for this. Like you just need a 6-inch tube. I put the markings on. They're like in intervals of, I've written out the 0.8, 1, 1.2, 1.4, and there's notches for every 0.1. So, and because it's like, it scales 1 to 1, you just get a ruler out if you really need to know like the fine details. That's about it for this. But how do we control this? Backpedal quickly on that HERMS Coil thing. It's in I sous vide control the water for that bath, and I set it to about 1.5 degrees above my mash temperature, because that's just like, you just need to set it a little high because like you lose heat in the tubing and stuff. So that's how I put that in there for that. So there's one more piece to show you, which is, this was, you know, a nightmare. This is the second one of these I built. The first one was like in a little plastic enclosure. It had a really, actually very, very good PID controller, like $80, $100, like just expensive, very good. Love 32B if you want to know. And it worked, but it didn't have like a percentage control for power, for boil. So this puppy, if I wanted to go back to the REMS tube, I would probably honestly use this. And if I want to do interesting other stuff, like use, I don't know, maybe have like steam heated mash that's kind of semi-automated, then I would use this. So what's on the back, we got your power out with like a little, you know, like watertight connector. We've got a power switch for the whole unit. So that's just like, it's just exactly what you think. It's like the positive goes out from the cable to this, and then from this to the rest. And then we've got the power outlet for what you plug in. I had originally, this is a good idea if you want to build this, I 3D printed a version of this, kind of to test out the spacing. Not a bad idea if you have a 3D printer. And then the front, it's an Auber, I believe it's an easy boil. So you've got percentage control, but also you can do all kinds of stuff. You can set like, you know, boil profiles, mash profile. You can do crazy stuff with this thing. I don't do any of that. because I can't for now, but like it's cool. And then you have the PTD sensor. Inside, just a little, why not? You've got, let's see, you got a rail over here, because I think it's an easier way to set up the box, and it's kind of what they do on larger systems. So you've got power, so you've got neutral, let's say roughly like positive, negative, and then neutral on this side, and then you just route out. So the back of here is where the end of the easy boil is, and then you got the SSR up here, and then you've got the sensor goes to the thing. You get it. I mean, like, I could post a schematic online, but like, you get the gist. And then I probably could have built it in, but GFCI external, I kind of thought maybe I'd get double duty out of this thing because I have a pump also. Joke's on me, I use them both at the same time, so I had to get two. They're cheap, but this is a little clunkier than it needed to be, but I mean, it's sick. I'm so proud of this thing. It's grounded, obviously, and the beauty of this thing is it's aluminum, so it acts as a heatsink for the relay up to like 2,000 watts, something like that. So more than I need. So sicko mode. If you want to do a bigger build on this, you probably need a separate heatsink, but 1 gallon, don't need that. 1,500 is way more than enough. Okay, so you finish up the boil. As a quick note, you boil easy. I set it to like 50-45% power, which is like nothing. I mean, I like to go for the classic Lodo crew, you know, like low simmer. They're freaks about, they're a bunch of freaks. The Lodo brewers are absolute freaks, but they have this really interesting idea that you kind of like go on a low simmer. Like, you don't need a crazy, believe it or not, so my point is I go on 45% power, which is a good sign. It means I have a ridiculously powerful heating element that boils water in 2 seconds. So also I use that for heating my strike water, and having all these volume markings means that for the first time in years of 1 gallon brewing, I can track with ridiculous accuracy my efficiency and stuff like that. And I've been hitting the numbers on the dot. It's like, fun fact, it's about 65% overall, 60% mash. I don't sparge. I hate doing it. It's a waste of time. And the grain is like a dollar. Like, who cares? It's an interesting idea, and I'll try to do it. And I'm gonna do a stainless steel false bottom. I just have to kind of cut it out and do some stuff to it. But like, at some point, I will have the option of having a proper false bottom for the mash tun, because it's cool. Why not? And so let's talk about fermentation. So fermentation, so I chill the wort by pumping it through that coil, and because there's a temperature sensor on that, I can see just the temperature drop. I drop a bag of ice in the HERMS bucket, which is just another 2 gallon cooler. So I get a 2 gallon cooler, ice, HERMS coil, bada bing. It's within 10 minutes at most. I'm at even longer temperatures. It's like a very good system. That part of it is phenomenal. And then, but you do have to remember to run the wort through the HERMS coil for like a minute or two, just to like sterilize it. Fun fact. So fermentation. So now, racked fermenter. Obviously, I'm not going to show you, but I have a O2 wand, so I oxygenate all the wort. I use the yeast calc, and I usually pitch like a ballpark correct amount based on, you know, I usually do 50 to 100 mils out of the 100 mils in a pack. So let's talk fermenter. So fermentation, I do have a 1 gallon jug with like, obviously thermal well. Before even like talking about anything else, obviously thermal well. Why else would I do this? That's like the first thing I got. I mean, if you're gonna be a psycho about this, thermal well, duh. Fun fact, a thermoelectric wine fridge, sicko mode fermenter, and if you don't want a thermal well, a lot of them have like temperature settings. So this puppy is exactly what it looks like. It's a 6 liter like food grade like Cambro, I believe they call them. The lid is 2 grommets. Devastatingly, not really airtight, which means like half of the reason to homebrew is to see those bubbles. I don't get that, which is horrific. I'm trying to fix that. I probably need to cut out a gasket. We'll get there. So 2 gaskets, one is for thermal well, one's for an airlock. Out front we have a standard 2 doll, like just dirt sheet. You just cut like a 1-inch hole or something like that. Fiddle around with where you put the gasket, because like it leaks depending on where I put this. So like now I just mess around with it. If you do this, mess around with where you put the thing. Then we have this puppy, obviously just like a bottling attachment. You can take samples off this really easily. In a perfect world, you sanitize it when you're done. I'll leave that there. And then you can also bottle off it. So I just have a really short 2-inch jumper onto my bottling wand, from which I bottle. Bada bing. This is a good height. It's about the bottom of this is about a 1/2 inch from the bottom. It's clear of enough yeast. I've been lazy. I can't cold crash in the fridge I have because it doesn't get cold enough. And I bottle once in a while, so I'm like, sometimes you want the extra yeast, sometimes you want. That's one problem I'm kind of working out with my system, is there's a lot of yeast in my packaged products. That's just due to my choices. So keep that in mind. Keep the spacing of this in mind, and you can tilt it too if you're really worried about putting it higher and losing some beer. Because obviously, you make 1 gallon, you have very little to spare. So that's that. I've recently, thank you Kegland, they have these. So one side is a duo-tight fitting, and the other side is like a threaded. It doesn't really matter what. You just got to make the right size hole, but like a quarter-inch, standard, threading. Doesn't matter. There's a gasket. There's a nut. Who cares? But it's like more airtight. So I'm gonna try doing this. See if that helps with my bubble-less issue, which is like I cry every night. I need bubbles in my life, and this maybe helps. Not sure if this is gonna be a permanent addition to my repertoire. I'll probably throw it into at least one fermenter. It seems like a cool idea. It looks cool as shit. So just for the cool factor, I'll probably have it. And it's like $4 for this thing, like just dirt cheap. The thermal wall itself, another Stainless Brewing purchase, $8. Shipping's a nightmare. So like get a bunch of stuff at once. Get the HERMS Coil. Get like 3 of these. Get like the 6-inch model. Perfect. I made a mistake and only got like a half gallon the other day which is devastating, of like this dark mild, and it went just under the surface. So like 6-inch, perfect. And yeah. Okay, so there's one more thing. So the last thing today is that I have a 1.5 gallon keg. Not worth showing you. You know what it looks like, just off the shelf. In a perfect world, I love those Kegland ones, but because of the silicone dip tube, I'm kind of concerned about using it for fermentation because, I don't know, I'm kind of worried about getting it jammed up, or like, I don't like it floating. It might pick up yeast. I don't know. I'm just kind of needlessly concerned. Whatever. So I have a torpedo. I have a 1.5 gallon torpedo keg. Works great. It's a standard keg. It's just tiny. So there's nothing of note there. I do have the Spunding Valve, and if you get this thing off the shelf and you don't get the Kegland one, which is like, honestly, I would have gotten that if I had the option at the time. Tighten the shit out of everything, like really put tape on everything and tighten the shit out of it, because it is like, it'll leak like a dog if you don't mess with it. Granted, I learned a lot about testing pressure testing a system by having this work better than I thought it did. It did leak at first, but recently it hasn't been. I've been blaming it for everything. Turns out it was on me. It was just for me. So like, fun fact: if you want to pressure test a system, a simple way to do it, which is not the buy all end all, but like just pressurize it to 15 psi, and just disconnect the gas and just see what happens. You can even use this if you're not testing it with this. You can use this to occasionally test the pressure. And at the bare minimum, like my O-ring was seated wrong, and I found that out by like pressurizing it, disconnecting everything. Anyway, point is, Spunding Valve. I've done a few beers with this. It's tight. I would honestly recommend maybe having another gas in on the gas in on the. It's kind of weird. Gas in on the liquid side and then gas out into this, because if you cool the beer down, it's gonna PV equals nRT, so P down if T down. For multiple reasons, if you're gonna use one of these, I would recommend probably honestly like pressurizing it at the same time. That's just kind of unrelated, but I just thought I'd let you know that, because I've had some crazy like rocky spunned beers go from like 2 to 15 to 30 back down to 10, like just horrifically all over the place. So like, that's it. That's all I got. There's not much I'm not showing you. I'm wondering if there's anything worth mentioning that's not here. I mean, not really. I have a little box of chemicals. Oh, I treat all my water. I just start with basically distilled water and add it up from there. Gonna get a mill. Gonna get the probably barley crusher. That's kind of it. That's kind of the system. I have a temperature controlled fridge. Obviously, the thermal implies that, but I have like a wine fridge, which are sick, thermoelectric, quiet as hell, no real energy use, much less than a compressor. And I just throw them well, control that. Inkbird for what it's worth. That's that. I have a beer gun too. I just haven't used it, and that I'm gonna leave it with. That's basically the list as it stands. There's a huge wish list. I want some version of steam heating. Thanks to the Loto Freaks. Shout out to Loto Freaks for pushing the steam train. I also want to do step matching and HERMS coils, or like this one. doesn't cut it. I'd have to. It's just like I've tried it once, didn't work at all. So I want to be able to heat the mash. I have rims too, but I don't really want to use it almost ever. I want a plate filter. I want a few of. I mean, yeah, dear Santa, I want all these things. I mean, I'll get them at some point, but that's kind of the system. So I hope that helps. I hope that was interesting. I hope you maybe picked up some ideas on how to change your system. Honestly, some of these aren't crazy upgrades that are like, but that may have a huge difference. Like I think the sight glass is a good move if you can add it. I think the thermal oil is an obvious upgrade. HERMS Coil is a bit extreme, but I mean, you know, why not? With a HERMS Coil in a sous vide controller, like that's pretty cheap. You don't need a big electrical control unit to be able to do that. So that's it. So yeah, I mean, I guess if you have any questions, leave them below. Honestly, couldn't recommend you subscribe because like this is video number 2 on my channel or whatever. If you learned something or if you'd like to see more of these. And yeah, you know, thanks for your interest. Thanks for watching. Good luck brewing. If you make anything amazing, send me a bottle. I'm a Cloud Ale Brewing Co. Should have worn the shirt, but I like this one better. The Cloud Ale Brewing Co. Adrian, if you want to send me a bottle. That's it. Yes, have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.